You've spelunked into the Matt Cave.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Matt Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. This week, it was a fun weekend. It wasn't as bad as last week, and there's just a lot to talk about, so I'm not going to spend too much time on the intro here. I'm going to talk about all three football games, talk a little bit about the BYU men's basketball team playing one of the biggest games in the history of the program, and the Utah Mammoth. And if there is time at the end of all of that, I might review a game. But, as always, please like, comment, subscribe wherever it is, however you listen, 5 stars, whatever it is. Honestly, it helps a ton. You all know this because I say it every week, but you all are champions, and I appreciate each and every one of you. So let's just drive right through this and start with Utah State. So the Aggies came into the game as underdogs. It was in Vegas. Utah State was on the road. Utah State looked great against Nevada, who blew the socks off of San Jose State. I don't know if you saw that score, but that opened my eyes pretty wide. Ken Niumatalolo's job might be in trouble down there in San Jose, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Utah State and Bronco Mendenhall. And Aggies fans, welcome to the Bronco Mendenhall experience. Your team punches above its weight, does well through most of the game, and then when crunch time hits, everything locks up and nobody can win the game. That's Bronco football, baby. So Utah State falls in this one in double overtime to the UNLV Rebels, effectively eliminating them from Mountain West Conference Championship potential game. It was always a long shot. Utah State is pretty much at or above my preseason prediction for them with 2 games left to play. The 2 games they have left are Fresno State and Boise State. Boise State is a shell of who they should have been this season because Maddox Madsen got hurt in the game against Fresno State, and he probably won't be back anytime this season for the Broncos. So it should be an easier game than originally thought, but Fresno State, it's going to be in California at 8:30 p.m., so good luck there to Bronco and company. Maybe they can pull the upset, maybe not. They have to if they want to keep their sub 1% chance of Mountain West Conference title game appearance alive, but they need a lot of help to get there. And then the Boise State game at home, afternoon game, possible. So Utah State has 2 chances to get to bowl eligibility and surprise everybody, myself included. Do I think they will get there? No, I still don't. And that's not because I don't like any of the players. It's just because I have over a decade of Bronco Mendenhall experience, and I've seen this play out before. All right, so let's dive off of the Aggies and straight into Salt Lake City. Well, it was actually in Waco, or if you're a fan of The Office, Waco, Texas. Utah literally ran all over Baylor. 55-28 was the final score. There was a pick 6 involved in this one from Elijah Davis. Trey Reynolds also almost got a pick 6 in there to just dance on the grave of Dave Aranda, probably. I think his job he's toast in Baylor, which is too bad. He's a good defensive coordinator. You wouldn't think so with how Baylor has played the past couple of years, but if he is just in charge of the defense, he's a good one. He's a good one. And he's a good guy, too. So sometimes the good guys don't win, and that seems to be the case in Baylor. So this one, it was super fun to watch. It was home run after home run after home run from the running game. Bird Ficklin, Wayshawn Parker, it didn't matter. The Red Sea parted, and those guys galloped through. During the telecast, the announcer said you could drive a Mack truck through some of those holes. He's not wrong. Utah's offensive line is as advertised. They're really, really good, and they paved the way for 380 rushing yards. They almost outran what Baylor threw. So Sawyer Robertson for Baylor threw the ball 58 times. He dropped back to pass 61 times. If your quarterback's doing that, you're probably not winning the game unless you run a Mike Leach-esque offense, and Baylor does not. Sawyer Robertson threw for 430 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. And so during the game, I had a lot of thoughts running through my head, and my first one was, if Utah is forced to throw the ball, they're in trouble. But then my immediate next thought was, of the remaining 2 games, who's going to force them to throw the ball? Kansas State? No. Kansas? Absolutely not. So they don't have to worry about it. But if they do sneak into the college football playoff, or they get into a bowl game and nobody opts out of the bowl game, because if it's not a college football playoff game, a lot of these players just to get, what's the point? Yeah, It's fair. If they run into a team that forces them to throw the ball, a la Texas Tech, a la BYU, they're in trouble. They are. They've got two guys, really, maybe three, that can catch the ball, and that's it. And they don't really throw to their running backs either. They don't really do anything out of the backfield. So that's a worrying sign. Devin Dampier's health as well is a worrying sign. He was limping a lot in the Baylor game. Fortunately for him, he was not relied upon to do much of anything other than hand the ball off. So this game was fun to watch. Morgan Scalley's defense is just a pleasure to watch. It's so much fun. He has his game plan. He doesn't deviate from it. He may tweak it as the game goes along, but he doesn't deviate from it. He blitzes from everywhere, and it's a joy. It really is a joy to watch. So Utah wins this one. They are technically still alive for both the college football playoff and the Big 12 championship game. What needs to happen for Utah to make the Big 12 championship game, however, is Texas Tech is basically a lock, basically. And so what needs to happen is BYU needs to lose out, and then Utah holds the tiebreaker over Cincinnati. And that's the basic bare bones of what Utah needs to have happen to get into the Big 12 championship game and to have a shot at redemption against Texas Tech. The problem there is BYU looked really good in their game against TCU. Their last game is a home game against Central Florida, who literally has nothing to play for and is traveling across the country. I don't see Central Florida really doing much in that game. Utah's season hinges on what happens in that BYU-Cincinnati game. BYU wins, they're in the title game. BYU loses, things get interesting in the final week. That's really what it lays out for Utah, which is a frustrating end to the season for the Utes because they don't control their own destiny. And what else is frustrating is their two losses happen to be against two top 12 teams. And that's what they get dinged for. Otherwise, they've won their games by an average of 25 points. Yeah, that's really good. In case you didn't know, that's really good. So that's what's on tap for Utah. That's what they need to have happen. Will it happen? Who knows? The Big 12 is wacky. College football is even wackier. So we'll see what happens. One thing I am sick and tired of is the SEC. Those teams are not that good. Texas is not that good. They are not that good. Georgia, vulnerable. Alabama, not that good. So those teams that are up there that are going to be ranked above both BYU and Utah don't deserve to be there. They really don't. It's because of the patch on the front of their freaking jerseys. I hate the SEC. In case you didn't know, if this is your first episode, welcome in, but I hate the SEC. Loathe it. The entire nation should band together against the SEC. It's ridiculous. All right, let's move on to the BYU game. BYU welcomed TCU back to Provo, where they've garnered many nightmares for me throughout my formative years. And fortunately, it was a late game for BYU. BYU thrives in these late games, and BYU came out angry. They came out angry. That's the first time I can really ever say that about a BYU team in a very long time. BYU came out mad. They know they got embarrassed. They know they played their worst game of the season at the worst time in front of the nation. And they came out and they wanted to prove it was a fluke, and boy, did they. Jumped out to a big lead early. It was 27-10 at the half. TCU never had a chance. Final score 44-13. BYU also got a pick six in this one. They intercepted Josh Hoover 2 times and really made the TCU offense look inept. It did not look good, except for one player on that team, Eric McAllister, who's going to be in the NFL. Other than that, the rest of the team, not very good. Josh Hoover, overrated. He got frustrated. He started yelling at his receivers, and he's a captain. So there's some things for Sonny Dykes and crew to figure out down in Fort Worth, but for Kalani Sitake and company, much like Kyle Whittingham and company, they took care of business. The combined score for BYU and Utah was 99-41. I'd say that's pretty good. Bear Bachmeier looked incredible. I was impressed. He was not down on himself for his performance last week. He was angry. He used it as fuel instead of becoming scared and saying, what if it happens again, and start seeing ghosts. That didn't happen. The running game wasn't fantastic. It was good. LJ Martin, 21 carries, 88 yards and a touchdown. Bear Bachmeier, 10 carries, 59 yards and a touchdown. So what did we learn about both Utah and BYU this week? Well, we learned that there is now kind of a tiering in the Big 12. At the very top, you got Texas Tech. I don't think anybody here can dispute that. They blew out both BYU and Utah. They beat Utah at Rice Eccles, and they blew out BYU on a national stage. In fact, both of them were national stages. So that's the tip of the pyramid. The next slot is the state of Utah. It's BYU and Utah. They have proven that they are in that second echelon. Injuries, uncertainty at quarterback. The defenses are always going to show up, and the offensive lines for both teams are going to beat you up. And that's what we've learned about both of these teams. They are in that, I guess, 1B or second tier, whatever you want to call it, right below Texas Tech. And that's really awesome that both schools are there at the same time. It's not BYU goes on a run of a couple of Mountain West Conference championships, then Utah goes on a run, and then they get into the Pac-12. It's at the same time. That's great. I love that. So the road ahead for Utah, 2 easy games. It's against Kansas State at home for the home finale on Saturday at 2 p.m. Should be a rockin', rowdy, loud time at Rice Eccles. And then they close out the season at Kansas in Lawrence against a Jayhawks team that will be battling for their bowl eligibility lives. So that will add a little bit of difficulty, but not terribly too much if you want a matchup predictor like a percentage or what's going to happen in both of these games. Well, first against Kansas to end of the season on the road, Utah is currently sitting at 83% chance to win. And then at home against Kansas State, well, that's 88%. So ESPN is saying Utah's going to win out and finish at 10-2, 5-2, or 7-2 in the conference, which is pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good any way you slice it. For BYU, the road to Ho is a little bit more difficult. They travel to Cincinnati on Fox, which has not always been their friend. Matchup predictor for this one has BYU at 67.5%, so quite a bit lower than Utah's. Cincinnati is going to be angry. They are already bowl eligible. They are technically still alive for the Big 12 championship game. However, they need Utah to lose one more game, and that's not going to happen. So they need to beat BYU, and then they need to win their final game. So this one's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination for BYU. The good news is BYU looked healthy against TCU. Everybody did, from Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker to LJ Martin and Chase Roberts, Parker Kingston, even JoJo Phillips, even though he still has a case of the dropsies. The team looks healthy. They only had one injury against TCU with Waylon Lapuaho limping off the field. Kalani Sitake said he should be fine and ready to go for the Bearcats, but that was immediately post-game. We'll see what happens there. But the offensive line looked fine, even with Lapuaho going out. So the Cincinnati game, that's the season right there. That's the season. Win or lose. I mean, win, you control your own destiny. You're going to the Big 12 championship game in all likelihood. Lose, your season's over, because you lose the tiebreaker to Cincinnati. It's that scary. And the last game of the season against Central Florida, I mean, 91.9% chance to win this game for BYU against Central Florida, who is currently sitting at 4-6. Their last 2 games are against Oklahoma State and then BYU. So Central Florida will beat Oklahoma State. There's no doubt in my mind. So again, much like Utah and Kansas to close out the season, Central Florida will be fighting for their bowl eligibility lives. So it's not going to be as easy as people think, but cross-country trip, not terribly too much to play for because bowl games don't mean anything anymore. BYU's going to win that game. Unless something catastrophic happens, knock on wood, BYU's going to win that game. So really the season is against Cincinnati for BYU. Are they favored? Yes. Will they be favored by Vegas going in? Probably not. BYU actually hasn't been favored in many of their games this season, which makes sense. From the outside looking in, it makes sense. I know a lot of Cougar fans get angry about that, but outside looking in, it's a true freshman quarterback. It's a defense that doesn't really have any studs, just a lot of really good guys. And it's a team that is greater than the sum of their parts. It's really hard for Vegas to really do anything with that. So overall, super fun weekend. I enjoyed watching these games. It was great. And now let's move on to the BYU men's basketball game against Connecticut in Boston. That's a very weird sentence and one I thought I would never say about a BYU men's basketball team, yet here we are. Early on in the game, it looked horrible for BYU. Kibakita got knocked into next month by accident. That was not on purpose. It was a loose ball. He turned into a guy's hard-charging shoulder. Boom goes the dynamite, and Kibakita thinks that he is currently living on the planet Snarfall. So that happened, and when that happened, I got really worried because he's really the defense. But lest we forget, there is a guy on the bench that signed with AJ DeBanza, Xavier Staten. And this kid is really young, but he's capable. And he showed flashes of what he can do. He still needs to fill out. He still needs to get stronger. But when you look at the overall body of work of what BYU did against Connecticut, I said Xavier Staten, didn't I? It's Xavier. My apologies there. It's Xavier Staten. But overall, BYU could have won this game. That surprised and shocked me to no end because I kind of tuned out halfway through the first half when BYU was down by, I think, 20 at one point. And they battled back. AJ DeBanza, Richie Saunders, Robert Wright III, and Dawson Baker, they battled back. And I was impressed. I gave BYU no shot against UConn. Dan Hurley was a back-to-back national championship winning coach. A lot of those players came to UConn to win a national championship, not just to sign on to play with a number one overall recruit or to make the Final Four, make history with the school or the program. These guys expect to win a national championship. And BYU played their hearts out, and they almost won. If BYU shot better from three-point percentage, which we all know they're capable of doing, Richie Saunders, to give you an idea, Richie Saunders didn't make a single three-point bucket that entire game. He was 0 for 7. Robert Wright III only made 2. He was 2 of 6. BYU is going to be making more three-pointers. They are throughout the season. Mihailo Boskovic thrust into the starting lineup because of what happened with Kennard Davis. I don't cover that sort of story on this program, so you can look it up. But he was 0 for 5. He was very underwhelming for me. I know he's capable of more, which is why part of my frustration in this game was watching him play because I know he's capable of more. He's done more. So watching him struggle was really frustrating. And then watching Kebakita go out really broke my heart because he's so much fun to watch as well. And he works harder than anybody else on the floor. But overall, I'm impressed with this BYU men's basketball team. I thought Robert Wright was a black hole. I thought that the ball freezes on him, and it does. He had 6 turnovers. So there's a lot for him to improve on as well, but this is an early season game. It's the 4th game of the year, and BYU almost toppled a national championship favorite in what was basically a road game. I was impressed. This team did really well. AJ DeBanza is as advertised. He had a weak first half. He missed 3 free throws in the first half, which I think took him off his game a little bit because, hey, he's human, and he's a kid. He's 18. But he got back into it. And Robert Wright III, Richie Saunders. Richie Saunders was a warrior. He got into foul trouble early, but he's been through pretty much everything on a college basketball court, and he fought back. And if he makes a three-pointer, BYU wins, right? So this team is going to be good. This team is going to be really good. Dan Hurley had a lot of respect for them. He was heaping on the praise for the team after the game, saying those kids could have quit. They were down by 20. They could have just packed it up and went home. But they battled back like it was March Madness. That's what he said. And I was very impressed by that. I was impressed by the coaching of Kevin Young and his staff, keeping the team engaged, keeping the team believing that they could come back. And they almost did. So that's really what I have to say about the BYU men's basketball team. It's going to be a fun season. As far as like Utah State and Utah go, they are undefeated to start the season, both 4-0, but neither team has really played anyone. The best team on both of their schedules, I believe, is Weber State. So the jury's still out for them. It's not going to be a great year for Utah. I'm just going to say it. It's not. Utah State, Mountain West Conference favorite. They were picked either first, second, or third pretty much everywhere. Just more of the same, I guess, up in Layton. All right, now let's move it right along. And the schedule, by the way, for BYU, it doesn't get much easier. Their next game is next Friday, or this coming Friday, I guess, against a top 25 Wisconsin team. And then it's against Miami, an ACC team. And then they have a game off, basically, against California Baptist. And then against Clemson on December 9th. So it doesn't necessarily get any easier for the Cougars, which is good. That'll get them battle-tested and ready for conference play as well as March Madness as we march along the season. So, all right, let's move it right along to the Utah Mammoth. They are in the blender right now. They lost an overtime game against New York Islanders. They allowed an overtime goal to the youngest player to ever score an overtime winner in NHL history, in Matthew Schaefer, who, if you listen to anybody outside of Utah, he's already in the Hall of Fame. Give me a break, he's 18. Anyway, so that happened. And you would think the sky is falling. If you look online at any of the discussion threads or anything else, if you look at the chat section on Mammoth Plus, you'd think the sky is falling. It's not. We are 18 games into the season. How many games are in an NHL season? 82 is the answer there. Will this team be contending for a Stanley Cup this year? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They've got a lot to improve on. They are not in the same stratosphere as Vegas, as Colorado, as Florida when they're fully healthy, as Tampa Bay. They're not there yet. They showed what they're capable of on that super entertaining 7-game winning streak, beating teams like the Avalanche, the Wild, the Jets, even the Bruins, who are now towards the top of the Eastern Conference. So this team is capable of a lot. And I think that's where the frustration of the fan base is coming from. We've seen what they're capable of, but now we're seeing the other side of it. And you have to fight and claw and scratch your way out of a slump in the NHL, just like in any professional sport, but especially in the NHL, where it's physical and you're going a million miles an hour, and it's basically a football game, but you don't get the time off like football players do. You just have to go on to the next one. And so this team is still fun to watch. This team flies up and down the ice. Do they make boneheaded decisions? Yeah. Do they sometimes change the line wrong? Yeah. It's going to happen. Happens to every team, except for maybe the Colorado Avalanche. Man, Colorado, in the same division as Utah, is currently sitting at 12-1-5 on the season. They have one loss in regulation. One. That's insane. Unfortunately, it's in the same division as Utah. That's my luck as a sports fan. How's your luck going? So this team will get better. They're going to improve. They're in a slump right now. Yeah, it stinks to watch your favorite team or your hometown team lose. But here's the good news. Utah has played double the amount of games on the road than they have at home. The schedule is backloaded with a ton of home games. Just in the month of January, they have a ton of home games, and it bleeds into February as well. They're only going to get better. They're currently sitting at 21 points in the Central Division, which places them 5th. Obviously, you got Colorado and Dallas leading the pack. I really hate Utah is in the same division as Dallas. I can't stand the Stars. I never have. And if you look at the overall standings, they are tied with the Vegas Golden Knights in points. Yes, that is a real statistic. Home, they're 5-1-1. They've gotten points, math is hard, 6 of 7 games. So that's really, really good. And they're 5-6-0 away from home. In hockey, you want to be 500 or better on the road. You want to hover around that 500 line, and then you want to win the majority of your games at home. That's exactly what Utah's doing. They keep on this pace, they're going to make the playoffs. It's just right now, they're in a slump. It's really all it boils down to. Just like Vegas, in a slump. So Utah's going to figure it out. They're going to be making the playoffs. If you look anywhere from The Athletic to NHL.com to ESPN, their playoff prediction percentage is still hovering above 50%. It's at 60 to 70, depending on where you look. So the Mammoth are going to be making the playoffs. And I've said this for as long as I've had the show, as long as I've been alive, really. When the playoffs start in hockey, anything goes. Anything goes. Your goalie can get on a heater and you go in and win the Stanley Cup. Just look at the St. Louis Blues with Jordan Binnington. You have your studs, and your studs carry you all the way to the Cup. Look at the Colorado Avalanche a couple years ago. Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Gabriel Landeskog. So it's going to be a fun season. They're in a blender right now. I'm just getting really sick and tired of these fans that think they know a lot about a certain thing, and so they start preaching that they know. And the way they do it is they post these things online where it's, I'm right, convince me I'm wrong. And when you attack an issue like that, you're not going to get any resolution, and you're not going to have a discussion. You're just going to be shouting down anybody that has a different opinion, or somebody that has been watching hockey for 30 years and knows what they're talking about. So that's another problem I have with the fan base at the moment. And yes, it is a vocal minority. The majority of us are like, yeah, it sucks, but it's going to get better. We've seen what they're capable of, and they're going to get back to it. They're just in it right now. But you have those loud, annoying ones that are like, we need to fire Andre Tourigny. We need to cut Nick DeSimone. We need to cut Karel Vejmelka. He's terrible. No, Karel Vejmelka is a league average goaltender. That's exactly what he was paid to be. And that's exactly what he is right now. Is his save percentage lower than his career average? Yeah, by about 0.2%. That's fine. That's like 3 more saves a game. And he's facing among the least amount of shots per game in the league. So his stats are only going to improve as the team improves. Dylan Guenther, Logan Cooley, JJ Peterka were in a slump. They are climbing out of it. Dylan Guenther scored goals in the past couple of games. JJ Peterka looked fantastic against the Buffalo Sabres, and he looked really good in the most recent game against New York. So my shouting into the void here is patience. It's not going to get turned around overnight. Nobody needs to lose their jobs. We've all seen what this team is capable of. And what's even more encouraging is Andre Tourigny isn't pressing any sort of panic button. He's not sending people down to the AHL and calling up reinforcements. He's tinkering with the lines, which is what you're supposed to do as a coach in the NHL. And that has been, it's been resulting in dividends. It's been paying off. Breaking up the Cool in the Gang line and moving Logan Cooley up to the top line, moving JJ Peterka down to the third line, and it's making the team better. So to all of those fans out there that are screaming and crying and wetting themselves, calm down. Maybe hockey isn't the sport for you. Because it's an 82-game season where they're essentially playing a football game every day. Calm. I'm really tired of hearing it. All right, quick review. I did get Megabonk. I found $10 in the couch or something, and I was able to pick up Megabonk on Steam. If you have a Steam Deck, it is the perfect game for your Steam Deck, and it is a 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. Buy this game no matter what. It's a wonderful turn your brain off and just play type of game. I love that game. The art style and the silliness around it turns some people off of it, but overall, it's just such a good time. Just get it. $10, and you get an experience that is almost infinitely replayable. I don't have a lot of time left here, so I can't really go into the details of the game. Look it up on YouTube. It's a good time. It's $10. You're going to love it. It gets the Matt Cave stamp of approval. So there you go. I did get my video game review in there. So thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you all next week when we spelunk back into the Matt Cave.